Welcome to Straight Talk for Entrepreneurs, where we reveal what it really takes to build a successful business. Whether you are starting with an idea or growing your business, this is the show for you. My guests and I will show you how to build a strong mindset, a powerful body, a profitable business. Hi, I'm Brandon C. Wright, and this is Build a Business Success Secrets. How's life in North Carolina?
You know, it's wonderful. It's a little humid, but that's to be expected down here in Charlotte.
Yeah, I heard it. I heard the humidity was returning to sort of that seasonal normal.
It is. It is. It's making my baking consistencies a little more challenging, but we're learning.
Is it in the 90s yet?
Maybe in the middle of the day, but to be honest, I'm in the kitchen almost every day, so it feels like it's always 90 degrees in there. So,
Are
but no,
you
it's been fine.
are you in a commercial kitchen now?
I am. I am. Yep. There's a fairly large one in Charlotte called Carolina Commercial Kitchen, and a lot of food trucks are out of there too. So I'm in the Department of Agriculture side.
Oh, well, that's cool. Well,
Yeah.
I want to get to that, but I really want to talk about, I want to talk about that. And I have all your treats right here that I'm trying to eat in moderation as much as possible. Um, but I'd love to learn how you got started because you really didn't start as an entrepreneur per se. You thought you were going to be in healthcare, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, so I grew up in a very so I'm from Burlington in North Carolina, kind of smack in the middle of the Piedmont area, and I grew up in a very healthcare minded family. So my dad's a radiologist turned administrator now, and my sister's a neonatologist. Mom studied, med tech, and so I just kind of saw public health and business administration in healthcare as the ideal path for me. It's the only thing I knew. So that's what I studied at UNC. I studied health policy and management in the School of Public Health at UNC as an undergrad. And then that led me to go to Deloitte Consulting to work in the federal human capital space for all sorts of clients. So that was the trajectory. That's what I thought I should do.
How was the consulting experience at Deloitte for you?
It was incredible. I mean, obviously, there's a reason I'm not there anymore. And my personal goals really didn't align with the professional trajectory. But the amount that you can learn in such a small amount of time there, especially as a newly minted full-time employee coming from college, they just put so much time and energy into investing in you to be client ready. But that said, I worked a lot of weekends. I worked a lot of nights. Some of my best friends were other analysts there, and but I with that came great responsibility. So I was thankful for that as my first job.
Well, when you say that it didn't align with your personal goals, what, was that something you realized when you got there, or is that something that happened before then?
Yeah, it's a good question. I honestly didn't listen to my inner voice as much as I should have coming out of college. I was doing what I thought was the safe route, that would make for a good lifestyle. I'm talking about in recruiting, they're mainly recruiting you for the lifestyle. They don't really tell you what you're going to be doing. You assume Excel and PowerPoints and whatnot, but it's mainly this fancy lifestyle of flying around and being in important client meetings as a 22-year-old. But honestly, my passion was really hospitality and working in the restaurant industry. That's what I grew up doing as like one of my first jobs. And I bartended in college. And I really just loved making people feel safe and welcome and comfortable. And hospitality was like the best avenue to do that. So I had wanted to own my own restaurants for the longest time. And my family always said, and a lot of mentors too, oh, well, wait till you have enough capital to do that for fun. It's really hard to make money in the restaurant industry, yada, yada, yada. And so I was like, okay, well, I can keep people safe and healthy in public health and, the business side of it, since I knew after my first Kim 101 exam that I wasn't destined for med school. That's kind of where I saw the best avenue for me. But it was two parts. I mean, the hospitality is one and my passion for it. But at the time I was dating my now husband long distance, Charlotte to DC. So it wasn't that terrible. but it was hard doing that for so long, and we had been together since freshman year. So my only, this is pre-COVID, but the only way I was going to move up in federal was to stay in DC or move to Atlanta. So I was ready to come back to North Carolina.
Were you bartending in downtown Chapel Hill?
I was. I worked as a hostess and then waitress and then bartender at La Residence. It's a French restaurant that turns into more of a college bar at night. So yeah, I mean that's honestly what helped get through school. And it was, you know, a lot of late nights, but I really love the efficiency and like the teamwork behind it, and again making people happy.
Did you get to see the business side as the dollars were flowing as well?
You know, only in my shifts and my transactions, I didn't get to get my hands dirty in any of their cash flow or, you know, P&L statements. But it was, you know, I would hear things and pick up on things, you know, just from being, you know, in a barkeep, from what things they were struggling with, or things that were, you know, added investments. And I learned a lot about the liability side behind, you know, bartending and owning a restaurant, and workers' comp, and just all of the moving pieces. But that really excites me because I like to, I feel like an octopus, and I have my hands, one hand in everything. And that, so the restaurant industry was like, it just felt natural.
So you're at Deloitte. They're basically driving you to night and day is how it works. And do you have what I call it a pivotal moment, Becca? Like one day you're sitting at your desk and you just say, yeah, I'm done. And you walk out, or do you start thinking about this? Like, this isn't my calling. I'm working these long hours. I'm not really into it, and devise a plan to get out.
I think sometimes we can be too smart for our own good. So I think it took a lot of those pivotal moments, to be honest, to build up to kind of a monumental moment where I was like, I'm done. I remember I lived on Q Street, like smack in the middle of Logan Circle and DuPont Circle. And I was in this cute row house with my friend, also an analyst at Deloitte. And I came back from work at the long commute, and I just called my, you know, boyfriend crying. And I was like, there's just so much politics involved with a lot of consulting, and I think anyone can tell you that, like, if they're being honest. And I was just really frustrated with my situation at the time. And so long story short, that's one moment that I really remember, because I was like, I've got to come home, and I've got to change industries. And that actually led me to business school, thinking about other avenues and knowing that I always wanted to go back and get a graduate degree, but I didn't feel equipped to own my own restaurant yet, or to start my own snack company. So I look back on that moment and I'm really happy that I kind of just knew in my gut, and I wish I would have listened to my gut earlier, to switch things up.
Well, I like that. You actually, I think you just created a line. You get pivotal moments to a monumental moment. When you had that moment, did you start saving your money to prepare to not work and figure out what was next, or like how's that work?
Um, so I'm a Christian, like, you know, grown up in the church, and so for me, every pivotal moment, you know, trying to listen to my gut and everything. But honestly, there's sometimes I have to just kind of let God take things over, and I can't handle everything every step of the way, because you're not going to see your trajectory from now in the next 10 years. You can plan it out all you want, but there's just some moments of faith when they say take that leap. So I was saving in DC. I was also studying for the GMAT every morning from like 6 to 8 until, you know, 6 to 8:30 when work started. So I would commute over on the metro when it was really chill in the morning, go over to Arlington, work, study in the office, and then when work started, I would go to work. And so took the GMAT several times. I mean, everyone, especially in consulting, you know, it's a certain personality type. You're always kind of thinking about the next thing, whether that's professionally or personally. And so I was working on that. I was saving money. It's very hard to save money in DC, New York, San Francisco, in any big city. I was paying about half my, to be transparent, about half of my paycheck was going to rent. And so it's super difficult to want to have that lifestyle as a young professional there, but also be able to save for your next, you know, big purchase and life step. So I was saving money, but honestly, what happened was that I was just like, I'm going to apply. You know, let's apply to several schools and see how things go. And I felt really fortunate to understand kind of the student loan process. Someone had explained it to me, and I was like, well, it's just the next step. It's inevitable. And also, I'm very privileged to have parents that were so supportive of my sisters getting higher education and knowing that that was something that they wanted us to have more so than getting married or house or anything. So they also said that I could, take out money from them and pay them back when I got a job. So that wasn't really stopping me. And I like call that out because that's such a sign of privilege. And that's one reason I'm hustling. Like I want to be able to do that for someone stuck in a bad situation or someone that wants to go to grad school and can't have that option. So, but fortunately, got into UNC Kenan Flagler Business School for the full-time program and actually got a full ride there from a school fellowship.
I saw that. So I want to take a step back because I am very curious. And for all the listeners who may not know, Becca and I actually are alumni because, or you're not quite, or maybe you are, maybe you graduated, but did you graduate yet?
I did graduate in May.
Yeah, you graduated in May. We are both Tar Heels and went to UNC Chapel Hill. And I'm curious because you sort of skipped it. I don't know that you skipped it on purpose, but how do you go through this analysis that business school is going to be your answer to teach you how to run a restaurant? Or in your case, any business, but in your case, a restaurant.
I think I always felt this imposter syndrome a little bit around like, oh, I've got to have the right like academic formula or classes in order to prepare me for the next career move. When a lot of people would say, no, just get a job as a general manager, jump into it, work your way up. Which would have been honestly a more like cost efficient way if I think about it. But I think for me, the 2 years of the full-time MBA program offers you to kind of take a step back and reevaluate your life, where you want to go next, and also just learn all of the different industries that are out there. I just wasn't sure that where in hospitality I wanted to plug in. And I had tried at Deloitte when I moved from federal into commercial to get onto hospitality accounts, large, hotel chains, airlines, restaurant groups. It was just so difficult without having that background. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go get an MBA. Maybe I'll come back to consulting, but I can really concentrate in hospitality when I go. And, come to find out, you come to the MBA and all of these people come knocking when they see you've got consulting on your resume. So I, was very flattered by all of the other consulting companies, even bigger and better than Deloitte that were coming knocking. But I really had to tell myself like, no, that's not why you came. Like, you've got to really hold true to what you want to do and be okay to be a little different.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. And obviously, I didn't get a scholarship to go get my MBA and paid, I think, probably 100 and some $1,000 for it. Um, but it's interesting as I look back on how society shapes that belief that you going or I or anyone going to business school is going to make you this business person. And I'm not beating up on the MBA and I'm not saying that it's right or wrong. I just find it interesting that there's this structure. And one thing that you said that I think could be more true, it's an expensive thing for people to do, but it's really taking a break to figure out what's possible. As much as, you were at Deloitte, they taught you, well, you learned it as an undergraduate, but probably got put in up to over your head in how to build spreadsheets, models, analysis, and do that stuff. So business school didn't teach you how to run an Excel spreadsheet. You arguably probably knew that.
Right.
So do you think that, and you're a business owner now, and business schools, they market something, but they really don't traditionally teach you how to be a business owner. They teach you how to be a manager or a consultant and make a good living.
Right.
What do you think about that whole thing?
That's a very good point. Yeah, to get back to your earlier point about going to business school in order to become something or to be the best in a certain industry. No, not necessary. And that may be a controversial statement to the big MBA supporters, but I think it just really depends on where you are in your life, and really thinking about, kind of doing a SWOT analysis on yourself. Where do you really feel like you need to excel, and what is it going to take for you to get there? And only you can answer that. I've talked to so many, especially females, that when I was Carolina Women in Business president, I talked to so many females that were really making the MBA fit into their life. And I was like, this just doesn't make sense for you, for what you want to do next, for, if you want to stay in this industry, like, why don't you think about this? There's so many other opportunities. But that said, I am such a operationalizer. It's really hard for me to sit down, take a step back, and strategize, especially my own life. And so the 2 years provided that kind of set time to say, what do you want to be? What do you want to become? And who do you want to surround yourself by? And that was my, big time for cold emailing, which I was good at Deloitte after all of my, randomly putting time on people's calendar in the firm that you didn't know, just to catch up about something that your client needed. And so I was really good at that. And so I use the 2 years as like a very expensive time to network. And so I just went above and beyond trying to meet all of the food producers, hospitality people, VCs, and got really plugged into the entrepreneurship venture capital club, because I was like, these are my people. This is the environment I want to be in. And I'm so happy because it helped pull that out of me and gave me a safe space to go into the industry and to make that leap. So like I said, I don't think it's necessary. I think it really depends on who you are. But I'd also say, if you're not going just for financial reasons, then I really think that it's so important to explain that to the schools that people are applying to, and to really look out there for any and all funding, whether that's student loans, traditional student loans themselves, or other opportunities of a work study. Because I think for me, I was like, oh, $100,000 for an MBA. When my parents, like, I can't do this, and they're like, well, we really can't either, but we can figure out something, and we will be creative with you to pay us back. And I was like set on that.
Yeah, I think that, and I don't I don't care about being controversial. I mean, you and I have MBAs, so you get to say what you want because you have it. And I remember one of the reasons that I got an MBA, and I think this is true about all humans, especially now we talk about biased and all these things that are in society. Yeah, humans are biased. And if you look to hire someone or I look to hire someone, are we going to look for that MBA? Well, one is we're going to look for the MBA because it helps justify the decision that we made, whether we're strong people or not. It doesn't matter. That goes through your head probably at some level. And it checks a box to say, well, I know Becca has these skills. I mean, she
Right.
she had that. But I tend to agree with you. I wasn't going to get my MBA. I already was working on a master's in psych, and I said, but a partner, when I was working at a venture capital firm, and the partner said to me, "You have good talent," and I beat out people who had MBAs to get that job. There were a lot of people, as you know, in consulting, it's
Yeah.
highly competitive. And when I got there, they're like, "You got to get your MBA." Now, the question really was, did I need to get the MBA because for them to promote me someday, I needed that MBA because they had the MBA.
Mhm.
And in that industry, it tends to check the box. Unless you've made $500 million or $1 billion in a company, then you tend to get a free pass for the most part. But I just do find it's this topic of do you need the MBA or not? And the other thing that I don't know if you see it, but I see all this stuff on social media, like the alt MBA or this MBA, the alternative MBA or this, that, and the other. And I'm thinking to myself, I think that these people don't understand what business school is and isn't. And actually, as you've alluded to, if you want to be an entrepreneur, s- at some level, you may not even want to get the MBA for the mere fact that it will teach you. I don't want to say to overanalyze it, but as an entrepreneur, you got to take these crazy risks. Like, you
Yeah,
know,
they're scary you. Yeah. To go back to your previous point about bias, I saw that bias firsthand for my clients choosing people to be on the client team, and how well respected and admired, not necessarily partners internally, but clients would say, "Oh, they got their MBA from so and so," and this the camaraderie that it brought from someone else that got their MBA around the same time, and it's like, it's another way to bond with people, and also trust them. So that bias is definitely there. And then to your later point, there's so many business analytics degrees out there, online MBA programs, shorter ones you can do in a year. There's a lot in, North Carolina has, 16 UNC affiliated universities, are like the best, in terms of going to a 4-year degree. And a lot of them are now adding on these programs, and a lot online now that with COVID. And so I just kind of caution you when doing those to really make sure that it's fitting the need that you have, and not just to get it, for your degree, because you really can walk out and be in a lot of debt, but not really, trampoline you to the next step.
I agree with you. Well, here, just being human. When I hear some people tell me, "Oh, I got an MBA," and then they explain to me that they took a 1-year program, I respect that you may have taken a 1-year program, but you don't have an MBA. You have a master's in something, but those of us who paid our dues, 2 years of a real MBA is a very, very hard program. And anybody listening, if you do choose to do an MBA, it can be valuable, but it is. I mean, is it fair to say, Becca, that UNC was hard for me?
It was hard. It was hard. The first year, especially when I mean, time management more than anything. The classes are hard. The recruiting was difficult. Rebranding yourself and meeting a whole community of students that, age ranged from 25 to 40, that have all different types of professional backgrounds, and adjusting to Chapel Hill if you're coming from a big city. There's just so many things. I think for me, though, the biggest learning that I faced was my own leadership, balancing being a student leader and then starting to run my own company and trying to ruthless prioritization. That was the biggest challenge.
So thanks for sharing all that. I just wanted to have that MBA question
It's a
or
good one.
discussion, because I think it's important. And at the end, and then we'll talk about, so in the end, based on what you know right now, and I want to come back to how you got to starting your company and how that worked, was it worth it?
Definitely.
And
It
if
was
you,
for me. The MBA, is that your question?
yeah, the MBA, and I want to throw people. Some lady told me the other day who I interviewed. She's like, "You always throw a zinger in. You always got a zinger." So the zinger is if you had to pay for it, would that have changed your decision?
I think getting the MBA, if I had to pay for all of it,
I'm
I
saying
would.
I'm saying that the question is, you have to take out, it's $100,000+, probably more expensive for now. I don't know how much it
Mhm.
costs, but it's 6 figures plus, in addition to your living expenses, the
Right.
sacrifice that you make with your husband, right? He's got to pay the bills, all this stuff. So if you had to pay for all that with student loans and you didn't get a scholarship, which I think is awesome, and I didn't even know you could get, but um, would you do it?
Yes, I would do it, but I would have a different career trajectory than what I have right now. And that's sad, because that is saying that I would not have probably pursued entrepreneurship, especially in the food industry, had I taken on that debt. And that's my passion. So it's kind of a trick question, Brandon, because I can't predict how the NBA will help me, 20 years down the line, maybe 30. But I will say, for the connection, the bias that other people have, toward, choosing people with an MBA, and then also, the network that I made and the experience I had. That's a double-edged sword there, Brandon and I. But I probably just wouldn't be in entrepreneurship and able to bootstrap my own company.
And I think that point is what I was thinking
Getting at.
about, because the first thing, you took the words right out of my mouth. I was like, wow, that's really sad. So think of all the people that go do these programs and then take the job that they were trying to
Yeah.
get out of to pay back the student loan.
That's why I said you have to know yourself. You have to know your true reason. Do not go to MBA because you want to do entrepreneurship. Like that's probably not the best fit. I think a lot of people, what happens in the MBA program is they can kind of see through the BS of some of the corporate positions with people coming to recruit. And for me, I was like, this is the exact same thing I went in senior year, but time, times two, and getting paid more money and getting more managerial responsibility. Yet it's just another rat race that I didn't want to be a part of. I was like, I have great skills and leadership skills myself, and I could bootstrap my own company and what I really want to do and have the flexibility and autonomy. And I trust myself. Like I trust myself to be able to close down the business or back out of it or not get, not trip over my own shoelaces there. I really trust myself to be able to close things down if things weren't to go well. And so why not take a shot on myself? But that's honestly came from having the time of the 2 years and COVID. COVID just provided a really interesting opportunity, which I'm sure you'll get to, but
Well,
it
let's
did for
talk
sure.
about it. So you're in business school, you make the leap from Deloitte, you get there, you're doing your first year, and I don't know if did you intend to start a company? Some people go to
No,
business school and intend to do it. Did
to
you,
start it.
you didn't do that?
No, no. I got there. I was, distracted by everything that glittered. I thought everything was gold. And I was like, oh, I want to do consulting again, or oh no, maybe like healthcare administration. I was all over the place.
Why,
I
what was the glitter of gold? Was it the money that you could make?
Oh, the money, the other people in business school, because you have to remember you're going in and you don't know anyone. So it becomes this like competition a little bit of like, where did they get an offer? Someone so already has a job and it's August and we haven't even taken set foot in the classroom. And that was me. I had an offer at Amazon. I interviewed early at a pre-MBA event, and I had an internship offer there in their retail leadership development program, which sounded awesome until I dug in a little deeper and I said this culture doesn't align to like what I'm excited about and the hospitality, et cetera, et cetera. So there was that. And then, all the opportunities. I went on a tech trek. I was in the tech club. I was like, oh, I want to do tech. And it seemed like the right move for people coming from consulting that wanted a little more laid back culture, but still a good amount of autonomy and building things at scale. And so I went and saw Facebook. I met with so many great Tar Heel alumni that were so supportive and awesome. And I was like, I actually see myself here. So I got that offer in January and interned there all summer. And it was supposed to be in Sunnyvale. My husband and I were going to move out there. We're like so excited. And then COVID hit. And they told us in April, like, hey, it's going to be all virtual. So I took it from my Chapel Hill house I was renting and just did the full thing virtual there. But it allowed me not to get too caught up in the benefits and the fluff of working for a large tech company and having my dry cleaning taken care of or free food and coffee. I'm obsessed with iced coffee. So I was, so hyped for that experience and exploring California and going to Napa and Tahoe. And I was so pumped for that summer. And so I felt a little bit gypped because of COVID. But again, I think it was a God thing telling me that, that wasn't that was in the right place for me and not to get distracted.
It's a very seductive place out here. And
It's so
Facebook,
shiny. I
Facebook,
love to visit.
come on out. The Facebook experience it is worth everyone experiencing what tech companies do. And I mean, the food at Facebook candidly is incredible. I have a bunch of friends who work over there and have been over there for lunch a few times. And um, it's very seductive. The Valley is, what I say, Becca, is Silicon Valley. And look, I came here. I migrated here, but I'm a tech nerd, and my bet was if you're going to be in tech, I want to reduce
You gotta be there.
you want to I mean, it's hard, so you want to get the best chance you can. And but I say this: Silicon Valley is like Las Vegas. You can win $1 million if you come to Las Vegas, and you'll make your dreams come true. But what really happens is you lose a bunch of money and time, but you had a good time and you move on. And not look, Silicon Valley, make no mistake, is an incredible engine. It is like no engine that you will ever see on Earth, and mainly because it has the ecosystem that goes from everybody's investor for the most part out here, potential investor, and then it has every round, and then it has the companies to buy it, and then it has the infrastructure, and that takes
Mhm.
decades, multiple decades to build. But
Yeah.
not everybody's successful out here. Like it, you can go bust. So you can come out and visit. We're here in Half Moon Bay. But anyway, you're doing this internship. You feel gypped, but you're still doing it with Facebook. So you get some experience, some feeling of the people at least. And what happens?
Well, incredible experience. And I was working in community operations. So it was a lot of kind of behind the scenes. I wasn't necessarily doing product management, but we were doing a lot of behind the scenes, understanding bad actors on the platform, how to decrease misinformation. And this also was, several months as we were ramping up for the presidential election last fall. So it was just a very fun time to be there. And like you said, like it's an engine. And I just saw this little snippet of it at Facebook, but the people were so smart. The problems that we were solving, they trusted me with so much. And what happened was I got a return offer and I asked them to move it to the Austin office because you can't keep a girl from the South. And I was really excited to be in Austin. I have a lot, and that's a stretch. I have probably 5 or 6 friends there. So I was really excited to try something new. And a lot of people were starting to make the migration there, my age. And so got that. And I honestly I was with my husband, like hanging out on the couch, and it was like August time frame. And I told him I got the offer, and he was so excited. And we were looking at Zillow and houses in Austin, and also we were just hyping it up and just like, popped a bottle of champagne or just talking. And it always has a couple, glasses of alcohol where I really like say what's on my mind. And I was like, babe, I feel so like humbled and honored by this, that they would want me to come after working with them for 12 weeks and at that salary and everything. But I just don't feel like it's right. Like I don't know why I can't get so excited about this when other people in my program would kill for that internship and that opportunity, especially international students. And that's what felt so icky to me, was that I was sitting here with an offer, and my international student friends are busting their tails in tech trying to get somewhere to sponsor them with a visa. And it hurt me to be thinking, why can't I get excited about this? Like, Becca, just be happy for like what you have. And I told him, I was like, if we're gonna move everything out there and like build a life out there, and this is gonna be the trajectory, I've got to try cheese pennies, which we're getting to. I got to try Piedmont pennies, and I got to launch it, and we got to pilot, just try it in Q4, see what happens. Cause this is really my big idea that I've had for the last, several years. The last year I've been working on it. I got to just do it. And he was like, all right, well, you need to just set a launch date and build your website, and you need to do it. Like, we need to do it. Because he was kind of frustrated at me because I keep flip flop. So he was a little frustrated at me, but he was like, all right, we're gonna try it. Pick a date in September, we're launching. So that was like the fire under my butt, because I felt like I was picking up our whole house. And at that point we have a chocolate lab mix, then so I have a child. And so I was like, I don't want to pick us all up and move out there to be really unhappy. So I want to give this entrepreneurship thing a go.
Well, how did you come up with you said you had this big idea, but I haven't heard the big idea yet. I mean, how did the big idea come? Did you one day say, I got this recipe? Did you have one of these, which are, the interesting part about these is when I first ate it, I was like, very cheesy, very good. And then it sort of kicks your butt at the end with this little spicy.
Carolina kick, Brandon. That's what we call
Yeah, I
it.
know it is. I really feel like I'm home in North Carolina when I eat these. So how's that? How do you get this great idea for this?
Yeah, so Piedmont Pennies is my grandmother's recipe. Born and raised in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, which is for those that know North Carolina, is the eastern part of North Carolina. And she taught my dad. She took a cheese stall recipe, kind of tweaked it, and we call them cheese pennies, and they were a little bit smaller even than they are now. But what she would do is around the holidays, she'd pinch out each penny and buy like the dough by hand. And she taught my dad to do it when he could barely reach the counter. He later passed it down to my sisters. They were helpful, but they were a little bit older than me and had social life. So I was the youngest by 6 and 8 years. So I was always home. And so that was my dad's contribution, like to Christmas, was that my mom would, do all the decorations and everything. And like he would help get gifts for our neighbors by making cheese pennies. So we'd give them around as gifts to neighbors. We always would get raving feedback. I mean, I remember no one really likes delivering like the neighbor's presents sometimes because you get caught in a lot of small talk. And so I remember my mom being like, just go deliver these, just go help me deliver all, like these presents. So I was driving around Burlington and I just remember someone being like, yes, I've been waiting a year for y'all to make these again. And I'm so excited because I don't know how you make them and I've tried. And I was like, oh, it's so nice. Like that. It wasn't just thanks so much. We love these. It was this actual enthusiasm that I could like see in his eyes. And so from there, I joked to my parents, kind of joked. I was like, this needs to be a business. I want to commercialize these. Like we could sell these in stores. I drafted a 2-page business plan front and back with like a mason jar of pennies. I think my sister actually, Megan, actually came up with the name like Piedmont Pennies, something, because we just called them cheese pennies. But I was like, here's all the stores we'd sell them in. Here's, what the packaging would look like. Here's how we would, scale. Here's what the stores we would target in the next year. And I was super naive to think that, that's like all it took. But I sat with that 2-page business plan. And it was actually my first newsletter to all of my Piedmont Penny subscribers. That 2-page business plan, I found it at my parents' house. And honestly, it was a year before we launched in September of COVID, September 2020. I had been working on the Instagram content and kind of building a brand. And that kind of helped keep me accountable as well as buying my Shopify domain. That kept me accountable of saying like, this is going to happen. Like you're making this happen, like whether you like it or not. So that's where the idea came from. But it wasn't until September that I actually got a, nutrition label, got it certified by the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, got our labeling, packaging, commercial kitchen, things like that.
So you did do a business plan, but it was on the back or a piece of paper, effectively. You get the recipe from your family. It hits you that these need to be sold. You get some validation from quote unquote customers who wait every year for these. And did you make your first batch in your kitchen there at home?
I made the first several batches between you and me and all your listeners. Yeah, I mean, I was baking them with friends. I was like getting people to try them. I would take them to club entrepreneurship events and just get people's like feedback. Like, do they need to be spicier? Do you like them this small, this big? What about the packaging? What size would you want? And then I actually took a course called Startup UNC, and it's done each mod. So we're in quarter schedule. And so you can either be a free agent or you can come as an entrepreneur with an idea and they pair you with students. And so I brought Piedmont Pennies to that class, and that's where we actually had assignments to do market research, to interview customers, to, make a marketing plan, to build a financial model, consult with lawyers, things like that. So that really did help. So that's one thing that sticks in my head when you talked about an MBA. I mean, that was an awesome opportunity that really helped Piedmont Pennies go to the next level.
Well, that wasn't part of the MBA program, is the irony, isn't it?
Startup UNC is.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that having deadlines and being held accountable, because you got to show up to this class and they're like, hey, Becca, what'd you find?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you do your homework?
Yeah.
You think that really was the structure to help you get there?
Accountability is key. Classes don't need to be the vehicle to get you there. So other forms of accountability being other makers. So here in Charlotte now, I meet with a friend of mine in the art business. We meet like every other week for breakfast and we talk about our goals and keep each other accountable. Totally different industries, but we're really helping each other like see and prioritize what needs to be done. Classes can be one way. Accelerators, that's incubators, another great way. I think it just depends on, again, how you're motivated and what your financial situation is.
Yeah, I think that you have to have, even me, I don't mean that I'm not human, but having done it for 2 decades, having that accountability is really key. because you want to do these things. It has nothing to do with intent. It has everything to do with execution. And I think having that, I do the same thing as you, and some informal, but some formal on the calendar. And I think everybody should do that. But having a check in with a group and saying, I think I don't know, Becca, for me, it's what were your sales in the last 4 weeks? That's like the most scary question, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, and the accountability method or vehicle evolves based on, like, again, where you are in your entrepreneurship journey. And it wasn't really until April when I set up my board of advisors that I really felt like I had the heat turned up. And I really started taking myself and my business more seriously, of like, this isn't just a side hustle that, I'll quit one day and go back to tech. This is a reflection of me and my like managerial skills, but also the if our customers want this, and if it's right time for the industry. And if I have advisors that I have to adhere to, and it felt like I was back in my Deloitte days of putting together a deck. We had our offsite, sending them a gift ahead of time, sending them our P&L, like financial reports, our trajectory deck, things like that, and just getting tough feedback from them. And they're again, board of advisors is not, there's no huge financial stake that they have in how in little pennies, but I would just say it's like you need that. You need to be scared a little bit and be nervous a little bit, to help you see more clearly. The adrenaline helps for sure.
I think that's a key thing that you just said, is that you are going to be scared. I think people think that when they start a business or start what they want to turn into a business, they get scared and then they think, well, that's scary. And then they turn away because it's scary. And I don't know about you, but uh, I still get scared every time I start something. I mean, you got a lot of people telling you it's not going to happen. You got a lot of, and they're all, in my opinion, most of them projecting, but um, you're saying no, you're putting yourself out there, and it's going to be scary. The key is really moving on. Is that still true for you?
Oh yeah. I had a friend who used to say it's good to be nervous because it means you care. I did musical theater growing up, soccer, everything, and always walking out onto the field or their stage, like I like a pit in my stomach. Even though I did all team related sports, I still would get nervous. And I think it's the same with entrepreneurship. And it wasn't until I started taking some of these entrepreneurship courses and doing case studies on entrepreneurs, and then also just being around so many, that I said, oh, wait, that's the norm. Like, if you're not nervous, then you probably are being silly with your finances and you have too much money, or you're making dumb decisions. Or maybe, you've got someone else bankrolling it. Like, I've never met an entrepreneur that isn't a tad bit nervous. Maybe they're not pushing themselves to grow. And I learned that too from one of my best friends and entrepreneurs, and Alex Brandwine, who was a Carolina MBA student a year ahead of me, opened up his own bagel shop in Chapel Hill and is killing it, and is doing multi-million-dollar expansion now in Chapel Hill on Rosemary Street. And we have these calls, every month or so, of just like, what's next? What are we nervous about? What's happening from here? And I just look up to him so much. And the fact that he's nervous and he's making these huge steps and making a very, very comfortable amount in revenue for his business, and has multiple employees. I'm like, okay, like, this is normal. Everyone is nervous in entrepreneurship, and that's something that you have to just learn how to cope with, and just stay focused.
So you launch, you got your domain name, you got your Shopify site, you got your home kitchen, you've got somewhat of a logo, or some semblance of a brand brief, or something to guide you, and you
Mhm.
start making them. So how do you start selling these things?
So to go to the logo real quick, I built that in PowerPoint. I was like, we need to buy some labels and slap this on, and it needs to just happen. Not the one you're looking at. Since then, I've gotten professional help, Thompson and Prince professional help. But honestly, it was the way that I started was building a lot of hype on social media and on Instagram. And I used my own personal social media platform to kind of, and everyone's on social media, right? Yeah, mind you, it's COVID, right? So everyone is on their phones all the time to connect. And so I posted on there about how, on my personal page that here's my Piedmont Pennies page. And then I've always wanted to take my grandma's recipe to market. Like now's my time in COVID. And this is like such a unique opportunity. And I'm just going to go for it. Like if it fails, it fails. But then I gave a lot of samples and free pennies to other MBA students. And several of them started helping me in the commercial kitchen that I had in Chapel Hill because we couldn't meet in person. We weren't having classes in person. We weren't allowed to meet in groups. And we were all like, it wasn't lockdown, but it was, shortly thereafter. So I was going into the kitchen and we were masked up and with gloves and we were 6 feet apart in the kitchen at our own stainless steel tables and we were pinching pennies out like by hand. And I had like, 6 or 7 people and I'm like prepping the dough and we're all just chatting and catching up. And we are like, this is so nice to be productive and also catch up with one another. So that's kind of how I built demand. And then someone felt a part of the team and they would tell their friends and their parents and they just were so great and supportive. I know a lot of people probably like pitied me a little bit and were like, why is this MBA student like making a snack company? And like she was just at Facebook and like, is she like kind of crazy? Like it's just like a pet project. And I didn't always hear that. I've heard it before, but I know some people were thinking that because I might think that myself or have thought that myself. But it wasn't until like Q4, it being such a crazy time with the holidays and everyone wanting to ship direct to consumer, ship to their cousins or their friends of friends or whatever that they weren't seeing, that our online sales just took off. And I was fulfilling everything from my house. So my entire house is full with like Uline cardboard boxes. And I'm, I go to class in the wake up, like answer emails of customer reviews. Then I would come back and work on marketing, go to class until like noon or 1. And then I would just literally go bake all evening. And then I would come back and I'd package them at night or in the morning and we'd ship them out. And I had best friends at UPS that just like knew me by name. And that was kind of the grind. It just took off and I almost couldn't keep up with it, but I also didn't have the right operations in place when you think about it to keep up with it. Not saying it was like crazy, but we were at that time shipping like 40 or 50 packages a day and it was just me. So it felt very steady. But you never know, like how long is this going to keep up? I was still nervous even when things were going well or people would send great feedback. It still made me nervous, but social media really helped things take off.
And then you get through, well, you graduate in May of, what is it? You just graduated. Well, let me ask on the operations, when did you figure out that your kitchen wasn't big enough and that you were going to have to do something? And how did you even figure that out? Because, you can have an MBA and you can do the operations model and in that, I don't know who teaches it anymore, but you can do that simulation and you can win, but that's a lot different last time I checked than, making dough and figuring out how it actually works when something happens. So how do you transition into that scaling place?
Yeah, I wish I would have paid more attention in operations, to be honest. I wish I would have taken more operations classes and now I'm just kind of like plug and play in Excel and figure it out. I figured it out when I was having just so many bottlenecks. And every time I would like throw resources at it, whether it was the pinching themselves or like how fast I can melt some of my like, wet ingredients or mix my dry ingredients, it just felt really inefficient. And I was like, this isn't, I can again throw a resource at it, but have another bottleneck and another bottleneck. And I was like, I need to go into a larger scale kitchen. Like if this is actually going to be a food, manufacturing, a CPG company, I've got to get into a bigger kitchen that has a larger 10 rack oven, at least a 60 quart mixer, at least several stainless steel tables where I can spread out my packaging and my pinching and everything. So that there's plenty of that like in the triad area, but honestly, 2020 was a weird year because COVID. I got married in July, had a 20-person wedding. So our 300-person event was 20 people at my home church in Burlington outside. And we got a dog and we launched Piedmont Pennies and we bought a house in Charlotte. And so I was like, how many crazy things besides like have a baby maybe can I do in like this one time? And that's not going to be for a very long time. But it was in November that I was like, I want to feel settled with Piedmont Pennies. I need to start hiring people And it just didn't feel right to just hire people for such a short amount of time while I'd be in Chapel Hill. And also, like, real estate's super expensive, and the kitchens and everything, like, even during COVID when stuff was going out of business, like Chapel Hill is kind of a bubble and it can be pricey. And so I also just wanted a better food community. Like, I wanted to meet with other makers. And Charlotte kind of felt like the next place. I knew how big it was, how much it was growing. My sister lives in Raleigh and I love her, but it's also like her town. So I'm kind of like, okay, Charlotte, my husband's from here. We had a lot of friends here. And I saw so many commercial kitchen spaces for rent. And I was like, this is the next place. And so I asked him, I was like, can we sublease our current place? Can we buy a house right now when, rates were lower than they've ever been? And I was like, let's just go ahead and just make moves. Like, let's just do it. It just makes sense. And so we moved, and that was in January when I started looking for a bigger kitchen, and happened upon the kitchen I'm in now.
And how about hiring your first person? I mean, you had your volunteers, I got that, but eventually you sort of got to hire someone
Oh
that,
yeah, I came. That was the nervous thing about Charlotte was like all my friends work full time. None of them are students here. They can't just come help me pinch during the day. And I've been working nights from like 8 to 2 a.m. because I could rent the kitchen cheaper. And so I would, do class, film it, go get ingredients, and then I would, tell people to come around 9 after I prepped, and we would just go and, I'd pack up everything at like 1 or 2. And so my husband came a lot and would help me like moving a lot of the boxes because you're just lifting like heavy boxes, 50-pound boxes of just like pennies and packages and stuff. So that was like my workout for the day too. I didn't have any other form of fitness, so that's fine. But I think it was my first part-time employee I got from, she already worked in the kitchen with another maker and she just wanted more hours. So I was like, what a blessing this is that she already knows the kitchen. She knows how to work hard. She's friendly and really, really hard worker again. And so she was my first one. And then I started posting on some different, job hiring sites just to see who would bite. And so then I got a couple part-time employees from UNC Charlotte, just wanting to work like afternoon hours after work. And I actually just hired my first full-time employee that's going to help kind of take my role in the kitchen as a production manager. So that allows me to get my head out of the kitchen and focus more on, our financial projections and accounting and all that fun stuff.
oh, congratulations. That's a big first step. And you must be growing because if you're able to hire someone revenue wise, are most of your sales online or through distribution partners?
It's interesting, we didn't start retail until, gift shops and wholesale until March. And it's quickly become, 60% of our revenue. Um, I think it's partially because of like the type of gift that we are and being a food product. That's also not something that's plant-based or something that's like new and improved where we get all the Instagram ads and everything of like the next nut butter and the next like smoothie additive and things like that. But mine honestly just resonated a lot with local gift shops and specialty food companies. And so we just kind of started slow there, and then honestly it's taken off. I'll get 2 or 3 inquiries a week about it, and are slowly just starting to expand in the Southeast and South Carolina and Georgia. So new flavors coming down the pipeline, upgrades to our packaging and things like that. It's constantly problem solving, but we still are trying to push a lot of our direct to consumer because that's the fun part, getting to connect with the customer. And I think a lot of people forget that. We haven't gotten on Amazon yet, but you don't get to see actually like the customer's name or how they converted, and that information that's so powerful. And that's what's been a lot of fun, connecting with them in our emails and on social media.
Are you going to, from a strategic business plan, try to go more direct because of the margins?
That's a good question, Brandon. I think we're figuring that out as we go. I think there's ways to do it very efficiently. It's like, am I building a fulfillment center and a production facility? Am I building a marketing and like a sales, hub? And so I've actually got 4 interns this summer from UNC that are all helping me with various projects and getting the entrepreneurial experience that I wish I could have had when I was in undergrad. And they're helping me answer some of those questions around marketing, around our different sales channels. And it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. So I'll have to touch base with you in a month.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. I was reading a very old book. It was by Mark McCormick, who said what they don't teach you in Harvard Business School. And that's old book. Um, and in the first few pages, he says he says that when he used to teach at business school students always try to put things into a box, right? Because in business school, you are taught they here's what it is, here's the category, here's the business model, here's the metrics, here's the financials. So I am interested to see what these MBA students come back for
Oh,
you.
undergrad.
Undergrad. Okay.
Might be a little, we got both.
Well, I think
I don't
that's
know. What do you think? What do you think about that? I want to turn it on you, like being on the West Coast and seeing a lot of these like D2C companies going at it and throwing a ton into marketing spend. What do you think about that?
look at you. Uh, yeah, the zinger is you today. What do I think? I think that I don't regret getting my MBA for a lot of the reasons that you said. Um, the network is invaluable. You get time to breathe for a minute. You do get some core skills, not that you're going to become an Excel wizard, not from business school. You're going to become an Excel wizard because you were a venture capitalist, investment banking,
Right.
or consulting.
Right.
I became a Excel wizard from working at America Online in marketing analysis. That's where I became an Excel wizard. But um, I think that business school can inhibit you. And it's because if you weren't exposed, if you took a very traditional track, I mean, undergraduate, consulting, MBA,
Mm-hmm.
you can't categorize what I did when I started my first company. There's no categorization. Like you can't put that into a box. Actually, with your company, Piedmont Pennies, there's no categorization. Like, how are we going to figure out that Becca had a grandmother and had this recipe and we're going to replicate that? Like, you could say, well, I'm going to go try to find an older person who has a good recipe and do that. But
Right.
so I think that I think it can inhibit you. I think that having both is hugely valuable. And I'm going to say that I actually think my master's in psychology may be more valuable.
I would
And
think so. Yeah.
because business at
It's people.
yeah, the recurring theme in your story really isn't the math. It's not the market size. It's the people.
Mm-hmm. Hands down. It is. It's the people, and it's the focus and the prioritization and kind of again unleashing your passion. And I just go back to the privilege that I had to have all these awesome opportunities to be able to try different things to lead me to this point to say, like, I don't want to be on my deathbed wondering if Piedmont Pennies would have worked out, or if it would have, or if I would have like enjoyed the ride. And so my advisors are constantly pushing me to think about, the strategy, or, if there's an exit, or if this is going to be a family business, and to think of the financials. But it's also balancing that and not putting things too much in a box, like you said. But one book that you mentioned pivotal moments too, and one pivotal moment that I had in business school was reading Andrew Yang's book, Smart People Should Build Things. I don't know if you probably read that before. Just talked about the brain drain of so many smart, talented people. And I wouldn't say myself included. I probably just like went along with the tide, but a lot of people around me going in straight to law school, going straight to some going to like a deferred MBA, and med school. Well, med school, I don't know if med school is actually one of them, but there's all these like different industry. Consulting was a big one. Investment banking was a big one. And basically saying like, look at all these people that could be fantastic entrepreneurs and probably have passions in different things, that are taking this route because of the lifestyle or the pay or because of the prestige, building the resume. And then, but you get to a point when you're like, I'm doing this. I was doing Deloitte, and then get the next place, and I was doing this to get the next place, the next place, the next place, and then you're just like, I'm so unfulfilled. Like, what am I actually excited about? And so I kind of think everything does happen for a reason, but reading that book really showed me kind of how I was a part of the system and how I need to like kind of that I'm the only person that's going to speak up if there's something that I want to do or someone that I want to be. It's on me.
Well, I'm going to give some feedback because you touched a nerve on something you said that just drives me crazy. And maybe I did all the things I did so that I can say that I was that person so that it gives me a better pass to do it. But I find that investors, and I don't know who any of your advisors or mentors are, I have no idea. But when I hear people pushing a person, and I'm not saying they're pushing, but they're clearly asking because you brought it up. How are you going to exit, Becca? Last I checked, Becca like just started the company, just graduated business school, just started this thing full time. Um, I find these things, conversations. I'm going to use this word, and you can correct me that it's cool, but it's not really cool. But what I think all of us, and you can get caught up in that. And as soon as you get caught up in building a company to sell it, you will make mistakes and you will cut corners because you're trying to make money. And my experience is that when I focused on that, it didn't work because if the market comes down and someone comes out and says, cheese is not good anymore, like how are you going to live through that? Right. And I think that if you focus, not you, but any person who starts a business focuses on building the best product that customers love and continually pay for and spread the word without a Facebook ad. I'm not saying you should, Facebook ads are necessary and all that stuff, and distribution is important. But if people are talking about your product and they're paying you for it, and you just focus on that, of course, someone's going to want to buy you because anybody who builds anything great, they want, right? If I build a toy, if I build a bike that's super cool, people are going to want it. If I buy, anything, I'm not coming up with a good example this morning because I haven't eaten breakfast yet. But the I think that I just encourage everyone out there who's listening and you and all this other stuff. I find that a really cool academic thing. And I think I'm not saying that you shouldn't focus on who you could sell your company to, but stay focused on your stinking product and be great at it and satisfy customers. And if you do that, last I checked, anybody who's cool, different, makes great music, people want to buy, associate with, or something.
It's a great point. I always think back like my mantra, like family first, always. And my customers, and my retailers have become my family. So keeping them happy and trusting me and the company, it's like that's top priority because I mean they're my family, they're my friends, and so like why would I not? And so it does shift the priorities and your focus when you're so worried about a 3-year plan to get to X number. You will probably do anything in your power to get there. But me understanding what the number could be is important. I think it's always important to know where you are in your total addressable market. But I would say that what's even more important is taking care of my people because again, like, I could, Lord not willing this, but it died tomorrow. It's, like, what is it? No one's buying, and probably no one's, I don't know, maybe someone might buy the company, but you can plan, but if you're not executing, like you said, intent is not what matters. It's actually execution. And so I'm trying to like keep the family first and really focus on quality now as we scale. And I'm wearing 1,000 hats from the fulfillment manager to customer service to my accountant to now food scientist as we start scaling these batches and negotiator when it comes to payment terms and marketing when I'm running our social media. So it's been a lot of fun. And when it's not fun anymore for me, or if something were to happen, then that's I would think about it more seriously. But right now it's a lot of fun and I can keep family first. So I'm going to keep trudging along.
Well, I'm going to prepare you so that you don't wind up selling right away. Some days won't be fun, but in general, it will be fun. So, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story today. What 3 tips would you have for fellow aspiring people and current business owners? Because you're generating revenue, making money, and hiring employees now. What 3 tips would you have for fellow business owners?
Big one I have is trust your gut. I think that a lot of people, especially smart people, try to, like you said, overanalyze their situation or their next step. If it's in your gut, it's there for a reason, especially if it's just kind of nagging at you for year after year after year. Like trust the gut, it's there for a reason. And you need to, and with that, that means trust yourself. The second thing I'd say is find that connection in community. So whether that's other makers, whether that's other people in your business school or people that are passionate about the industry that you're in, whether it's just listening to a podcast, like if you can do one thing a day to just connect yourself to what you're passionate about, it does create a sense of accountability, like we talked about, and also it builds up your own self-esteem to just kind of launch from there. The last thing I would say is take care of yourself. I had a couple scares last fall of just being in the kitchen for like, you know, 8 hours plus, just trying to fulfill order after order. And I was the yes woman because I didn't want to say, I baked. New Year's, Christmas Eve, I baked and didn't go home to family until like later in the night because I was like, I want to deliver this order. Because I want that family first, but I was putting the family as my business first in front of my actual family. And so I would just say, looking back on that time, like I can't get those memories back with my family and hanging out with my niece and nephew and things like that. So whatever rest looks like for you, whenever you are at peace, like writing down what makes you happy and what helps center you, whether that's, yoga or running a 5K, getting on your Peloton, or just hanging out with your dog. For me, it's like a lot of those things. And also hanging out with family. Like you got to find ways to rest, and only you will be able to tell yourself when that time is right that you need to unplug. And I feel it when I've like had it up to my ears in stress or just like complaints about this or that from whoever, and I'm like, I think I need to go rest. I think I need to stop because tomorrow is another day. So those are kind of big things. Trust your gut, find connection, and make time to rest because it's a marathon, not a sprint.
I think those are great tips, and I can see your Peloton behind you
Should be on it one day.
to make that happen. Where can people find you and Piedmont Pennies to order these tasty treats that will, which way am I for those watching? They got a kick. And I got to tell you, this isn't a paid partnership or anything like that. I found Becca because she's an alumni of UNC Chapel Hill. So what's the best, where do people go, Becca?
Yeah, thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it. Little kick at the end keeps you coming back, and I'd recommend them with a cold glass of white wine or maybe a Merlot. Kind of the fruitiness balance is the fatty spice. We've done a couple wine pairing events, and that was the recommendation, or champagne, and also cold IPA. You really can't beat it. You can find us at PiedmontPennies.com. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok at Piedmont Pennies. And a lot of people ask, like, what's Piedmont? Like, what does that stand for? There's a lot of Piedmont regions of everywhere, but Piedmont in French means like the foot or valley of a mountain. And so in North Carolina, we've got the mountains, Piedmont, and the coast. So the Piedmont of North Carolina is the area smack in the middle, which is where I'm from, where Charlotte is too, but where Chapel Hill is as well. So that's why we tagged in Piedmont Pennies, working on our trademark.
Well, perfect. And for those dyslexic people like myself out there who cannot spell that, that is PIEDMONTPENNIES. Thank you.com. And thank you, Becca, for coming on today. Really appreciate it. Congratulations on your success so far.
Thanks for having me, Brandon.